Hey, everybody. A lot of times I hear people talk about the free market, the free market, the free market. We hear that phrase thrown around a lot. A lot of times it comes from these sort of libertarian folks who think that they think that it would be great if there was no government and everybody should be allowed to do whatever they want. And if that was the case, everything would just work out perfectly and smoothly. And the philosopher Thomas Hobbes, if you read his great work, The Leviathan, he talked about what that would be like. And basically, he said that would be like um, a jungle state, okay, where basically anything goes. I think the people who are in that sort of libertarian camp who believe that without government everything would run smoothly and effectively and everybody would reach their own personal level of highest satisfaction and happiness and utility, that's pretty much not true. I mean, human beings, we differ from animals in that we form societies. Even some animals species form societies where there is some overarching authority, and we do that. We may give up a little bit of our personal freedoms and do that for security and protection. That's not to say authority can go too far and become authoritarianism or totalitarianism or dictatorship. Yeah, but we try to find a balance somewhere in the middle. Anyway, on this concept of the free market, I always laugh at that because there's no such thing as the free market. That is a fantasy. In every society, in every nation, there are, to one degree or another, you find regulations and tariffs and taxation and even things like patents, and you have cartels and oligopolies that exist, or dominant forces in the marketplace. Even if it's not the government, there could be dominant forces, large corporate entities that could dictate what it is we consume, how much of it we consume. They can affect our choices and our behaviors through things like advertising and marketing and manipulation and introduction of certain kinds of products, and maybe the blocking of other types of choices. So it's all there. There's no such thing as the free market. Everything is controlled in some degree or another. In some cases, could be a lot of control and planning, if you will, and in other cases there might be less, but there's always something. All right. So I wanted to point this out, and I wanted to point it out in the context of the fact that when I talk to people, this is something I used to go around when I gave talks. I say to people, investing is really not hard. And the reason why it's not hard is because the powers that be, the people at the controls, the policymakers, they tell you what they're going to do. Okay. And usually, if it's in the case of a place like the United States or any place in Europe, once the powers that be, whoever that is, the president or the leaders of the country, decide on certain policies, it usually has to go through some legislative process, maybe an assembly, a Congress in the case of the United States. So, first, here's what happens: policies are proposed. Some guy has an idea. Let's say it's Trump. He has an idea. He wants to cut taxes. He wants to rebuild the infrastructure. So it's just kind of ideas in his head. Nothing has happened so far. These are things, he on the campaign trail, he's been out there, he's been talking about. They all sound great, okay, but they haven't been enacted yet. They have to be voted on in Congress, and most likely, whatever policies are proposed, they're going to be they're going to go through some shape shifting once they get into Congress. Somebody's going to want an additional this or take something out like that. So the thing is, we just have to wait to see what happens. When you react on an expectation, you have to understand that you are reacting on an expectation. It is not reality yet. It might be, fully realized. Okay, I mean, whatever Trump is saying right now, and I follow him very closely. I voted for him. It kind of changes from day to day, and I see a lot of people that he has appointed so far to his administration who happen to be, fiscal hawks if we're talking about the economic side of it. But the thing is, they will tell you, not only tell you concretely what he's going to do, but then it has to go through Congress, then it has to be voted on, then it gets implemented. Okay, I remember back in 2009 and leading up to that in 2008 when the market was crashing, and there were a number of occasions there where if you had waited, for example, in the beginning when Lehman failed, the Fed basically did nothing. They were lending out only against the highest quality collateral, which is treasuries. And, banks have a limit on the amount of treasuries they had. And really, that whole thing just exacerbated the problem because whatever assets the banks have, those are already regulated assets. In other words, those were already approved by the Fed and the government as assets that the banks could hold and post as collateral. But the Fed wasn't lending initially against those things, and they were lending in limited quantities. But then when the Fed finally said, we're going to lend open-ended, unlimited quantities against all collateral, the whole panic stopped, but they came out and they said that. You knew the exact moment. Same thing with the stimulus. It was talked about, then it was finally passed. And when it was passed, I remember, I still worked for Fox at that time. I said, you got to buy, you have to buy. This is the bottom, the stimulus. Everybody, no, the stimulus is going to make it worse. It's going to crash. You had predictions of Dow 1000 or something. That was the bottom. Same thing here. I understand this rally. Don't get me wrong. And yes, maybe I sold a little bit too early, but I understand this rally. It is people who are acting on an expectation. If you are acting on an expectation, you might be right, but it's a sort of gambling. Okay, I try not to. But it's a sort of gambling when you act on an expectation because you don't know, nobody knows the outcome of that expectation. You might be very confident in what Trump is proposing right now and think that all these things, and I really don't know concretely what that's going to be. What size of a tax cut? How much infrastructure spending? How much cutbacks in other things, spending cuts and other things? You don't know. We don't know. So everything that's happening now is happening on an expectation. It is a roll of the dice. It is a speculation. It is basically gambling. And one of the things I teach and I stress is that I don't gamble. I operate a business. All right? So I am betting against this expectation now, which has become, I think, euphoric, really. I mean, I don't see. What's he going to do? I want to know. I want to see. And we will see. That's the point. We will see. So, I am not overextended. Everything is fine. Everything's wonderful. My stocks are doing fantastic. I'm raising cash. I have a small short position in the S&P. That basically sums it up. But they tell you what they are going to do. And all we have to do is sit around and wait for that and then wait for the final thing to actually happen. And then we know what to do. It's like with the fiscal flows. People always say to me, well, what if this happened? The what ifs, right? Well, why bother with that? I'll know. I see it every single day. I know what's going to happen. I see it happening. So anyway, they will tell you what they're going to do and then it has to be done. It's like the other thing I always say to people, being aware that you are sabotaging yourself does not change the behavior. Being aware is already a great step. It's a great first step. But then you have to go ahead and change the behavior. So let him tell us exactly what he's going to do. Let Congress pass it, and then we'll know 100% what to do. Anything beyond that is pure gambling, and most likely, most likely unsustainable. That's all I want to say. Bye.